Hi friends, welcome to Magi. My name is Mangesh Kulkarni and today we are going to discuss one important book, The Argumentative Indian, the writings on Indian culture, history and identity written by Amartya Sen. Now in this book, basically the argumentative tradition of India is emphasized. Argumentative tradition means the tradition of having debates and discussions, tradition of thinking on the basis of reason. These points are emphasized through various examples in our history. Now to start with, they have given the book list of Amartya Sen, that apart from Argumentative Indian, what are other books which were written by Amartya Sen, and these books can be important for your UPSC exam also. So books I am reading, so choice of techniques, then you have collective choice and social welfare, then on economic inequality, some kind of research papers are also written, then poverty and famines, very famous book written by Mr. Amartya Sen, then choice, welfare and measurement, resources, values and development, then commodities and capabilities, another important book, then on ethics and economies, some combinations of essays written by Amartya Sen are compiled here. Then inequality re-examined, another important book. Development as freedom. This was also asked in UPSC prelims exam once. So development as freedom, and then rationality and freedom. So these are some important books written by Amartya Sen. Now let's start with this book, The Argumentative Indian. Argumentative Indian, in this book basically 4 sections are given. First one is voice and heterodoxy. Second is culture and communication. Third is politics and protest. And fourth is reason and identity. Now to start with, we will have discussion on first part, that is voice and heterodoxy. Voice and heterodoxy. Now in this section, very important even for your UPSC prelims as well as mains exam, because many examples are given related to Indian history and culture in this first part. Now let's understand this, what is voice and heterodoxy and why this is included in this book, in Argumentative Indian. So first of all, to start with, the very first line given in this book, that is prolixity is not alien to us in India. Prolixity means what? Being verbal, being talkative, being argumentative. It is not alien to us in India. That is inbuilt in us. That we are very fond of having long discussions, debates. We are very fond of talking. So the very first example, Krishna Menon. Krishna Menon's speech in United Nations. कृष्ण मेनन यांची जी स्पीच होती युनायटेड नेशन्स मध्ये, सो इट इज लॉन्गेस्ट एवर स्पीच ever in United Nations, and from that we can say that we do like to speak. And when we say we do like to speak, it is not a new habit to us. Krishna Menon, that is in 1960s for example, but even before that, even in ancient India, even in medieval India, we are having this habit. So we do like to speak, and in that sense the examples are also provided that our epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, these were even longer than European classics. Iliad, Odyssey, these European classic poems, these are Ramayana and Mahabharata, these are even longer than our European classics. So to start with, dialogue and significance, the section given here, the dialogue and significance, that importance of dialogue, importance of having discussion, and it is very much given in our history also. For example, Mahabharata. Mahabharata, we all know Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita was a kind of dialogue between Krishna and Arjun, two contrary moral positions. First one, Krishna. Krishna is emphasizing on duty, and Arjuna emphasizing on avoiding bad consequences. That if I do this thing, then it will have this kind of consequence. Now in this, there is conversation. So you can say a kind of argument is going on. Then this is also percolated in other parts of world, that when we say Mahabharata, then many European writers, many European scholars, they have used this thing as a reference, Mahabharata. For example, there is one writer called Christopher Isherwood. He translated this Bhagavad Gita into English. Then another example, J. Robert Oppenheimer. J. Robert Oppenheimer was leader of American team who constructed this weapon of mass destruction, 1945. So in that case, he quoted Krishna from Bhagavad Gita. J. Robert Oppenheimer, he quoted Krishna from Bhagavad Gita and he said, I am become death, the destroyer of worlds, which was given in Bhagavad Gita, quoted Krishna, J. Robert Oppenheimer. Now, this kind of significance we are having in India, the significance of dialogue. Okay, so then moving ahead, if we are having this kind of argumentative tradition, then was it only related to particular section? For example, if we talk about gender, was it only related to males or it also included females? If we are thinking that our argumentative tradition was male dominated, then we are completely wrong in this. In this book, Argumentative Indian, a lot of examples are given where females were also part of our argumentative tradition. Now, a lot of examples are there that we are having women in politics also, participation of women in political leadership and intellectual pursuits. After that, recent examples you can say that Indian National Congress, Trinamool Congress, these political parties are being headed by women. Then in our independent, pre-independence tradition also, in our modern history, Sarojini Naidu, first Indian woman president of Indian National Congress. Again, it can be important question for UPSC, 1925 Kanpur session. Then first woman president, if they ask you first woman president, it was Annie Besant, 1917 Calcutta session. But first Indian woman president, Sarojini Naidu. Then if they ask you second, it is also given, second Indian woman president of Indian National Congress, Nellie Sen Gupta, 1933. So these things are given in this book and it can be asked in UPSC also. Then if we move further back, if we go to ancient India, we are having many celebrated dialogues which involved women, many celebrated dialogues. If we go back to Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is dialogue between Yagnavalkya and Gargi. Now, Yagnavalkya and Gargi, Yagnavalkya was an outstanding scholar and teacher and Gargi was a woman scholar. So, the dialogue between these two, a kind of intellectual interrogation done by Gargi with Yagnavalkya. So, this is one example. Then another example where there is dialogue between Yagnavalkya and his wife Maitri. Now, this is very philosophical kind of discussion that can we achieve immortality if we are having a lot of wealth? So, this kind of discussion was going on between Yagnavalkya and his wife Maitri. Can we achieve immortality with wealth? So, there is a discussion, there is a dialogue related to income and achievement between these two. So, this is another example. Then you are having one more example, dialogue between Yudhishthira and Draupadi. So, Yudhishthira reluctant to fight a battle, fierce battle with his own brothers, and Draupadi is encouraging him to fight this battle. So, again this is one example, dialogue between Yudhishthira and Draupadi. So, these kind of things were going on in our history, which emphasizes, which clearly validates this point that yes, we were having argumentative tradition across the gender. Both female, male, both were participating in this argumentative tradition. Then next part, if we are having argumentative tradition, then was it, again we will say that, was it related to any particular section? No. because across the class, different caste groups or different classes, all these were parts of argumentative tradition. Then what is important here, that if we go to ancient India, then to start with we will have the orthodox kind of teachings. Orthodox kind of teachings means we will have some kind of dominated religion, some kind of dominated Brahminical traditions, and after that some people are not happy with that, and if they are not happy, they will come forward and they will have debates and discussion. And in that case, people are using their sense of reason. People are using their sense of reason, and through that some important movements arised. And these were Jainism, Buddhism, and some other important movements. To focus on Jainism and Buddhism, we will say that it was a revolutionary kind of thing, and it was again example of our argumentative tradition. Then if we go back to Mahabharata, a lot of examples related to Ramayana and Mahabharata here we can see in this book. So if we go back to Mahabharata, there is again one dialogue. There is again one dialogue between Bhrigu and Bharadwaja. Now here Bharadwaja, he is saying that variation in physical attributes is present in every caste. Variation in physical attributes is present in every caste. Whereas Bhrigu is saying that caste divisions are related to physical attribute, that any particular caste is having this kind of physical features. Different caste will have different kind of physical features. But on the other side, Bharadwaj is saying that variation is present even within caste. Variation is present even within caste, and we are all affected as a human being. We are all affected by all these kind of desire, anger, fear, sorrow. So we are affected, all are affected by this, that desire, anger, fear and sorrow. Then how we can say that we are different? So that kind of discussion was there in Mahabharata, the discussion related to caste or class. Then another example given related to Bhakti movement. In Bhakti movement also, people from humble social and economic background, they were saint in Bhakti movement. So again UPSC has asked a question on this also, that different kinds of Bhakti saint. Sant Kabir was weaver, then Ravidas, shoemaker, then Sena, barber. So these kind of persons were there in Bhakti movement. So it emphasizes that it was not related to any particular section. It was not related to any particular section. And even if we talk about women in Bhakti movement, then we are having a lot of examples. You are having example of Andal, you are having example of Mirabai. So all these things emphasize that argumentative tradition, it was not related to any particular section, be it related to gender. We are having both kind of examples like females and male, and then related to any caste or class, we are having examples related to argumentative tradition in India. So all these things are given in this book. That if we are talking about examples, very important part in this book, example. They have given to the point examples related to the point which they are discussing. Okay. Now next section in this book is related to democracy. And importance of public reasoning, importance of thinking on the basis of reason in democracy. So in this, first of all, the richness of argumentative tradition, it impacts the lives of people very much. And that is the first point which is given here, that it creates difference to the subcontinental lives today. Especially when you talk about India, then heterodoxy, that accepting our diversity, heterodoxy, it is natural state of affair in India. Heterodoxy is natural state of affair in India. And because of continuous arguments, debates, discussions, persistent arguments, Because of this, Indian politics is growing day by day. And that is the essential thing about our democracy. Then in this case also example is given. 1970s we had this national emergency, and when after this end of national emergency elections were conducted 1977, people thought on the basis of reason, and then the result was in front of all. That answer given by people of India through their voting power. So this kind of thing is given in this book, that 1970s national emergency example. Then another example, very beautiful phrase given here, that when we were forming our constitution, when we were thinking about our values, in that case continuous debates and discussions were conducted. In our constituent assembly debates we are having a lot of discussions. Now in that case very important phrase is given here, that interactive formation of values. Interactive formation of values, that we debated, we discussed, and then we clarified, then we got our principal values. And for example, secularism, a lot of debates were there, that what kind of secularism we should have and how we should value that particular secularism. So these kind of things are given as an example in this book. Then if we go back again, to our ancient India, to our medieval India, then we will get another examples, that public reasoning, how we were having this kind of thinking, that we will not directly accept what is given in front of us. We will think about it, we will have some kind of debates and discussions, and then we will finalize it. So for example, Buddhist councils, very important part in your ancient India. UPSC always asks question on this. So Buddhist councils, these were another kind of debates. So setting disputes between different point of views through these meetings or councils. So very important part in our history, Buddhist councils. Then in Jainism also we are having Jain councils, through which various kind of debates and discussions were conducted. Then another example related to Ashoka, where we will again find that public reasoning was very much important. Ashoka, here we can get one fact, that among earliest formulation of rules of public discussions were given by Ashoka. Earliest formation of rules of public discussion, that how we will have public discussion. In the court of Ashoka, these kind of rules were framed. And similar kind of thing was later also seen during the rule of Akbar. In medieval India, we also know that there was one important center or one important event which was conducted by Akbar, that is public discussion. And for that purpose, a special body was constituted, that is nothing but Ibadat Khana. So Ibadat Khana constructed by Akbar, and then these rules formulated by Ashoka, it gives examples related to your public reasoning. So this kind of relation between having democracy and having public reasoning are given in this section of book. Then next part is related to secularism. So understanding secularism, here first of all, tolerance to variation. This point is emphasized, that how we will have tolerance to variation, that yes, we will accept that this is our diversity and we need to respect it. And for that purpose, a lot of examples related to ancient and medieval India are given. That in ancient India, medieval India, people were entertaining themselves, people were, you can say, acknowledging themselves through various kinds of dramas and books. For example, here you are having Shudraka. Two important books related to Shudraka, that is Mritshakatikam, Mudra Rakshasa. After that, Kalidasa, Meghadutam. In all these books and dramas, a lot of emphasis was given on accepting diversity. A lot of examples were given on accepting diversity. Now, if we go to medieval India, there also we are having example that yes, we accepted our diversity. For example, poems written by Amir Khusro during Delhi Sultanate. poems written by Amir Khusro. Here also the emphasis was on accepting diversity. So it finds very important place in India that in 1947 we included secularism. No, secularism was part of our culture also, and that is emphasized here, that secularism, tolerance to variation or accepting our diversity, this was inbuilt in India, and that is the main crux of this point, that yes, we are having this kind of tolerance from our ancient India. Then there is one important point which you should know, that Indian secularism and Western secularism. In UPSC mains also they have asked this kind of questions, that what is the difference between the Indian secularism and Western secularism. The kind of interference given by state in the religious matters. So that is the main difference, that here in Western secularism you are having complete separation between religion and state. Whereas in Indian secularism, you are having some kind of limited intervention into the religious matters by state. So this kind of difference again in your NCERT books also related to polity, this understanding secularism in your NCERTs also this point is specially mentioned. Okay, then if we are discussing on this point, that argumentative tradition, we are having debates, discussions, we are having different kind of thinking based on reason, then the science in India cannot be neglected. That the Indian science, where you are having different kinds of scientists or different kinds of astronomers or different kinds of writers, for example Aryabhatta, then Varaha Mihira, Brahmagupta. So all these people, Indian scientists you can say, all these people, they were also having this kind of thinking, because without the thinking based on reason you cannot have this kind of scientific point of view. And from that we can say that this our argumentative tradition, the tradition of being skeptical, tradition of being reason based, this benefited our Indian scientists. And in that case the argumentative tradition helped in the development of science in India. That is very important point. Then another example related to our argumentative tradition, that is in Ramayana. In Ramayana there is one famous dialogue between Javali and Rama. So Javali lecturing Rama on how he should behave. Now this is very important. Rama, the king, and then Javali, a common person. But common person is lecturing the king on how he should behave, and king is listening to him. That is very important. King is listening to him. And what is a dialogue? Very important statement given here in this book, that Javali is saying to Rama that follow what is within your experience. You should follow what is within your experience. If you are experiencing something, then you should accept it. If you are not experiencing something, then you should not blindly accept that particular thing. Now this kind of discussion is going on in Ramayana, and which is very significant aspect of our argumentative tradition. Then another philosophical understandings in our history, for example Lokayata, Charvaka philosophies, all these philosophies, they are also mentioning this point, that yes, we need to have a kind of methodological scrutiny of our knowledge, that we should not blindly accept things, we should always have methodological scrutiny of our knowledge. Then we are discussing about science. In that case our science spread to different parts of worlds. That is also very important, that science has no borders. Because if we are having debates and discussions, always these kind of things will spread and it will not see any kind of border. And in that case, how we maintained relations with our external world and our argumentative tradition, these two things can be linked. That is, because of our argumentative tradition, we maintained our relations with external world. And in that case, here example related to mathematics is given, that the techniques of mathematics, The techniques of mathematics which were developed in India, these were transferred to Europe through Arabian peoples. So first of all, mathematics which was developed in India, and then it was transferred to Europe through Arabian peoples. And here, without having debates and discussions, this is not possible, which again signifies that yes, we were having this kind of argumentative tradition. The habit of talking, the habit of having debates, habit of thinking on the basis of public reasoning. So these kind of examples which validates all these points are given in this book, The Argumentative Indian. Now moving towards the next section in this book, next part in this book, we are discussing the first part, that is the voice and heterodoxy, and in that part the next section, that is inequality, instability and voice. Inequality, instability and voice. So here the emphasis is given when we say that we are thinking on the basis of reasoning, we are thinking on the basis of, you can say, public reasoning. In that case, this is very important point, that if we are having inequality, then first is we should recognize that inequality. Because if we are not recognize our inequality, if we are not recognizing our inequality, in that case we will not be able to remove that. And for that purpose, the very first statement in this section which is given, that is related to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. So Dr. B.R. Ambedkar on 26th January 1950 in the Constituent Assembly, he made this statement. The statement very important for recognizing inequality in India. So what was that statement? That we are going to enter into a life of contradictions. We are going to enter into a life of contradictions. In politics, we will have equality, but in social and economic life, we will have inequality. And we need to accept that, and we need to work to remove that inequality in social and economic life. And then what we have done to remove that inequality? We have included a lot of sections in our constitution. For example, fundamental rights are there. Then you are having directive principles of state policy. So these parts are included in our constitution. Then we are also having inclusion. Inclusive politics is going on. Then inclusion of women, inclusion of disadvantaged sections in society. These are included in our politics. Then there is always demand for justice. If anything's related to government decision which is not acceptable to people, then people are protesting also. So that is demand for justice is also going on. And this is possible because in our tradition we are having this kind of habit of having debates and discussion, habit of putting forward our voice so that our thinking is also reflected in government decisions. So that is the focus of this part, inequality, instability and voice. Now instability, another section that is in this part, that is instability. Instability related to this, first of all, you should have stability in this huge country because you are maintaining huge diversity, and if we are maintaining huge diversity, then having a stable governance setup is very much important. Now if we go back to history related to this, that how we were respecting our unity of India, in that case one beautiful example is given related to Akbar. So Akbar, as we earlier discussed, that he was always having this kind of debates and discussions in Ibadat Khana and in his court. So two important discussions were arranged in Agra by Akbar. If we just see the topic of that discussion, that first topic was acceptance of plurality. And second was dialogic commitments of people. The topics itself describe that what kind of debates and discussions were going on, that we should accept plurality, we should have dialogic traditions. So these kind of debates And through these debates, Akbar tried to recognize the internal diversity of his empire. Akbar tried to recognize the internal diversity of his empire. And there is one more example related to Akbar about Tariq-e-Ilahi. Tariq-e-Ilahi was an attempt to have integrated calendar of India. Integrated calendar of India. Integrated, focus this word, integrated. That means throughout the India we are making some kind of uniform rules and regulations related to integrated calendar, that is Tariq-e-Ilahi. Can be UPSC expected question. So these points are showing us that yes, we were respecting our unity. Then was this kind of tradition, argumentative tradition, was it related to people in India only, or it was also related to, or it is also related to people who are living outside India? So in that case, another section which is given here, that is the diaspora and the world. The diaspora and the world. Diaspora means people, Indian people living outside India. So in that case, there is a dilemma here. The issue of identity. Another important word which is related to this book, that is identity. So identity, issue of identity, that who we are. Are we people who are living in, for example, USA? So we should be loyal to USA, or if we are having our origin in India, then we should respect Indian traditions. So in that case, the people who are living outside India, it is given in this book that people living outside India are respecting both these things. The issue of identity, that loyal to country in which they are living, plus sense of affiliation for India. These two are balanced by people who are living outside India. Then they are having the pride in our traditions also. For example, they are appreciating achievements of India. Then achievements, then what kind of achievements? So some examples are given here, that Harsha, the Harshavardhana, the ruler. So Harsha's philanthropic leadership, and then Shah Jahan's aesthetic values, famous Taj Mahal, we can say aesthetic values or aesthetic vision of Shah Jahan. So these kind of achievements are appreciated by people who are living outside India also. And when they are appreciating these kind of achievements, in that case, it is not restricted to any particular religion. It is not restricted to any particular religion. For example, if they want to appreciate any particular musician, then they will not say that this is Hindu musician, or this is Muslim musician, or this is Christian musician. So it is not that kind of thing. So they are appreciating the achievements of India beyond the lines of religion. And that is very important point which is given here. Then throughout our traditions, we have seen that related to gender, related to class, related to caste. After that, related to our democracy, then related to our diaspora. All these things which we have discussed in this first part, it reflects one important point, that yes, we were having this habit of debates, discussions and thinking on the basis of reasoning. So that was the first part of this book, Argumentative Indian. And in our next section, we will understand, we will discuss the second part in this book, that is Argumentative Tradition. Okay, so thank you.